So, do you all remember in my review of the first 4 episodes where I said this? The episodes have kept getting better. And I know someone asked Rafe in the AMA, like, what's your favorite episode? And he's like, well, maybe this is recency bias, but I've liked every episode more than the last. Now, realistically, I don't think we can expect, by the end of the show, Season 1, Episode 4 to be the 4th worst episode in the Wheel of Time, which is what would be required. Every episode is better than the last. But there also seems to be hints that this is not pure recency bias from Rafe, because I think each episode has been better than the last. And not only that, the second half of Season 1 should contain better content than the first half of Season 1, because the second half of Eye of the World is better than the first half of Eye of the World. And honestly, the, Tinker stuff is probably the least interesting part of Eye of the World, in my opinion, and we got through that, and it was pretty good. So second half of Season 1. Basically the opposite of the first half, in that the first half, I liked Episode 1 the least, and then I thought they got basically progressively better. Well, this season, this half, basically, I thought got progressively worse. I'm actually one of the people, I really enjoyed Episode 6. I know Episode 6 seems to be the episode that some people really like, some people really hate. Also, I'm just going to say this now, I'm going to do spoiler-free for the book and show, and then at the end, I'm going to talk about some spoilers, because it's hard to explain, just to go in depth, more depth for some of the things I said, which I feel I can't really do spoiler-free. But I really enjoyed Episode 6 and 5. I thought both were definitely not as, actiony, as eventful as Episode 4, but I really, really enjoyed the stuff with Moraine and Swan. I basically, while reading the book, Eye of the World, Moraine is easily my favorite character in Eye of the World. I'm not going to complain about focusing more on Moraine. I think for the start of the series, she's just the most interesting character by a pretty significant margin. So I was pretty happy with the choice of getting a lot more Moraine stuff than we would expect. And if I watch my first review, my biggest concern is that they would kind of lose track of the side effects of making changes, which I was expecting to be a problem in later seasons. But it was a problem here, because Episode 7 I thought had some very good moments. I thought the start was fantastic. It had the best cold opening. I liked the last 10 minutes. It also had some of the stuff that I just didn't like this stuff in the middle. I was kind of like, what are we doing here, Rafe? What are we doing? So Episode 7, I had some concerns, but Episode 7 had me really excited for Episode 8, and I don't like Episode 8. I know a lot of people don't like Episode 8, but I'm joining everyone here. I think both as an adaptation and as a show, it's not very good. I think its consistency with itself is extremely not thought through. It's just very poorly thought out in general. It has some moments that I think are supposed to end up being shocking, but due to they're kind of either stupid or they don't commit to them, and they just end up kind of feeling all wishy-washy. And it had stuff that was supposed to be epic, but it just didn't look epic. It just wasn't visually epic. It ended up feeling a little bit cheesy. There was a battle that I think, for one reason, gets too much flack, but then also has some really stupid stuff. I'm going to talk about that battle, because if y'all know me, you know me, I like my battles that make sense. But yeah, so I really enjoyed the first half of this section of episodes, and then it kind of went downhill. Overall, I liked Season 1 of Wheel of Time. I'm extremely disappointed by the ending. It moved down how excited I am for Season 2 quite a lot. I was always going to watch Season 2 no matter what. It's Wheel of Time. Season 1 could have been a dumpster fire, and I would still watch Season 2. But I was, 6 episodes in, I was like really excited because I actually episode 6 is kind of tied with episode 4's my favorite, so I was like, all right, maybe it's gonna keep trending up. We'll see. But it's just the last 2 episodes kind of soured me because not just because of how they are as episodes, because they showed a lack of ability to consider the side effect of changes, which is something they had done well to start, but it was always going to get harder and harder as it went on. And I wasn't expecting this to catch up to them for like multiple seasons. So to be still in season 1 and have changes that you've made and not considered the side effects of is a little bit concerning to me. I guess that is part of what happens when, your Wheel of Time expert is a Wheel of Time expert, but they're not an everything expert. And I think some stuff with some things they changed about like the climax just didn't make any sense. And I'm gonna get into that. It wasn't like season 8 of Game of Thrones didn't make sense, but it still didn't make sense. It was like season 6 of Game of Thrones didn't make sense. Maybe season 5 of Game of Thrones didn't make sense. Still though, not fun. I think the strongest aspect of the show is fortunately still that I think they are doing the characters really well. I think if you were to examine each character and kind of the personality and traits they've established and the development they've had, they are very similar to the book versions of those characters. If you were to look at like how they've adapted all the different aspects, the characters is definitely where they've stayed the most true to it. They've definitely changed a lot about side characters. They've stayed very true to the main characters, except Matt, but Matt was because the actor left, so there wasn't a lot they could do about that. I would be curious to, like, watching episodes 7 and 8 makes me think they had a lot planned for Matt, and then Matt was gone, and then they just kind of had to put it together. That would explain a lot if that was the case. Like, if Matt was supposed to play, like, one of the biggest roles in episode 8, the actor left. So they just didn't have Matt. That would be a reasonable explanation. But whatever. It's still a little bit concerning. I'm hoping that's the reason, because if that's the reason, then it shouldn't translate into season 2, but I fully admit I may be taking some copium here, and it may just be that they just screwed up and just wrote it in a way I don't like. But, and I don't know how they're gonna do The Great Hunt, like, because of how, like, loose of an adaptation this is. You can't start the same way you start The Great Hunt, because people aren't in the same places as The Great Hunt. So, last 2 episodes raised serious concerns to me. They're going to have to do some work to get me back on board. And I was on board. I wasn't like, this is the best show ever, but I was on board. So I think, spoiler-free thoughts, it's an enjoyable but not mind-blowingly good show with a disappointing ending. Now, I am going to move to spoilers. There will be vague spoilers for The Eye of the World, because I will at times be saying what The Eye of the World did differently. So, like, most of the major spoilers for Eye of the World you would have by watching the show, but if you want to know all the differences by reading the book, which I would recommend, because I do think the book is better, then click away. I'm not going to be spoiling the books past The Eye of the World. Okay, spoilers. Go. So, we're going to start with episode 8. And I would like to talk about the battle quite a bit, because I think in one aspect it gets actually too much flack, and that's the people saying that it was really stupid for them to not hold Faldara and instead to hold Tarwin's Gap. People have been comparing this to something in Game of Thrones where people stood outside the wall. This was completely reasonable. And the reason it's completely reasonable is because the goal of the people in Faldara is to not let the Trolloc army run through the Westlands. Like, if they get past Faldara, they're not getting stopped for a long time. They're not getting stopped until they get to, like, Tar Valon. And if they decide to go west, they end up in, like, against the Damani, who are not going to be able to stop them, and they're going to ravage, like, half the world and kill thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So the goal is to not let them get past. It's not to not die. Like, if they live and the Trolloc army goes past them, that's a defeat from the perspective of the Borderlanders, which is very nice of them. And the problem with sitting in Faldara is, well, one, they mentioned Padon Fane cut the ropes of the drawbridge, but, you know, they can probably repair that. Let's say they can. Why not? It doesn't matter. They can probably repair it. They've got time. Yeah, it's true. The Trollocs probably won't. They won't be able to storm Faldara. Faldara, you look at its location. They picked its location fantastically. Faldara would be would be difficult to take. Like, there's one path to it. It's very high up. Like, they're not going to take Faldara quickly. But the problem is, if you sit in Faldara, while it's true the Trollocs can't get into Faldara, you also can't get out of Faldara. So the Trollocs can just leave, like, a token force outside there and then go ravage the rest of the continent, and you just have to sit there and starve. And you're never going to get relief from the siege, and eventually they would just starve to death. So, sitting in Faldara wouldn't work. When you're outnumbered as much as you are, they have this choke point with a wall, and that way the Trollocs can't get past. It actually makes a lot more sense from their perspective to hold the wall. Now, the wall is really dumb. And the reason the wall is really dumb is it's a wall that's just full of, like, murder holes. And what a murder hole is, it's a little hole that you can shoot arrows or crossbow bolts through, but is much too small for a person to climb through and come, like, stab you. And this is probably Ogier built. Like, it's probably an Ogier built wall. And it's a ridiculous design because the Trolloc can get through the murder hole. Like, they just hit it with an axe and just go right through. And it's like, if this is an actual serious thing that Trollocs... One, Trollocs are bigger than people, so it should be even easier to not let them go through. Like, this should not be hard. Just make the murder hole smaller. And two, what's the actual point of the murder holes? Just have a flat wall. Like, the huge advantage of the wall at Faldara is you don't have to have a gate. Like, there's no gate. It's just a wall. Like, you don't need to... I guess you do. Some people go into the Blight, but, like, it doesn't have to be a regularly used gate. You just have a flat wall, just have the wall on top, and they're not going to get through. They don't have siege equipment, can't climb flat stone. They added all the murder hole because they needed a way for... Like, the reason the murder holes are there is because the writers needed a way for the Trollocs to get in. Not actually because it's a reasonable design. And, of course, the more ridiculous part of it that makes sense in the book is why they're not fighting at all. And not just letting the channelers kill the Trollocs. And the reason is that... So, here's a show-book difference. In the book, Rand is the one who devastates the army. And he doesn't solo the army, but there's, like, a desperate fight. They don't have a wall at Tarwin's Gap. It's much further away from Faldara in the book. And they couldn't build a wall there because the Trollocs would attack you while build a wall. Have you ever tried construction? Not an easy job. Now imagine construction while Trollocs are attacking you. Not fun. So there is no, like, big wall at Tarwin's Gap. It's just a chokehold, and it's like a big open field cavalry fight. Anyways, and Rand, at some point, wrecks the army because why not? But it totally made sense for them to go fight first and not just let Rand wreck the army. One, because he didn't destroy the other army. It was a close fight that the Borderlanders were losing, and then his devastation caused them to win and turned the tide of the battle. And two, they didn't know it was going to happen. So they were making their plan not expecting to have channeling support, which is why they fought at Tarwin's Gap. Here, like, this is a change that the writers made, and they did not consider how it would make it not make sense. Because here, it's not Rand destroying the army. It's Nynaeve, Egwene, and a couple other, like, no-name Aes Sedai. And they just solo the army. Like, they kill everything. Like, the army barely does anything. And the problem is, if you're making the battle plan and you know you have channeling support, why not just lead with the channelers? Like, they just let all the soldiers die for no reason, and then the channelers destroyed the army. And yeah, a lot of the channelers ended up dying, but that would have, the same thing would have happened if they'd gone first. Why not just have the channelers go up to the wall at Tarwin's Gap, the Trollocs were closer together, and just be like... lightning. And then, you know, you don't have to have hundreds of people die for literally no reason. So it just makes the battle plan not make sense because of the change they made. And this is not a huge deal, but the reason it's concerning to me is it shows a lack of ability to consider the impacts of the changes. Because this is something they changed in the book, and they didn't think, like, what else is going to do. They were just like, oh, we had Rand destroy this, now we're going to have Nynaeve and Egwene do it, which a lot of people are annoyed by because, like, they just want Rand to do stuff. I don't care that much about Rand and Eye of the World. I actually like reading Rand and Eye of the World, but if you were to ask me what are your 50 favorite Rand moments, probably 0 of them are from Eye of the World. So, whatever. But he is the protagonist. Like, he should get to do stuff. So it's a little bit silly that he's doing something kind of dumb. But the more concerning part is they didn't then go, okay, so we're having the girls destroy the army instead of Rand. Like, what are the consequences of that change? And they just didn't find it. It made Agelmar an idiot, because Agelmar was... I mean, also, they're standing out in the open. Like, why are you standing in the open? Like, they could have stood either at the wall of Fardara, at Tarwin's Gap, which is what they obviously should have done, or in Faldara. Like, this is... Why are you just standing in the open? So if you screw up and miss one Trolloc, all 5 of you die, and the Trollocs ravage the continent, what is this plan? Just stand behind a wall. Like, come on, guys. So it just makes Agelmar's entire battle plan stupid. And for those of you who don't know, Agelmar is the king of Shiar, of the, like, Borderlands. He was the king dude. He's supposed to be one of the great captains. So he's like one of the 5 best generals in the entire Westlands. He's supposed to be an excellent battle commander. And he's an idiot in here, which sucks. Now, he's the least iconic battle commander. So I don't care about it that much from a, like, great captain standpoint. But it's really, like... This is one of the most warlike nations in the entire Westlands. Like, they're constantly fighting Trollocs and battles. You're gonna have their leader be a complete dunce, like the person in charge of their army. It's just whatever. Okay, so the Rand stuff. I was just kind of like, what are we doing? It was just so anticlimactic. It was more anticlimactic than the book was. And the book, Rand stuff, like, is not famous for everyone reading and being like, oh my god, that was so sick. Like, it's probably one of the weakest endings to a Wheel of Time book. But they just, I guess they just got rid of the CGI for Bahal Zamal. Whatever. I kind of... a little bit problematic, like... That's one thing. I don't know how they're going to deal with... That's different. Like, how Balhaz Zamal interacts with Rand is extremely different from it is in the book. And I'm... At this point, I don't trust them to deal with the changes, the butterfly effect that this is going to cause. I did trust them, but I don't anymore. They might. I'm not saying they won't, but I'll believe that they are going to account for all these things they changed and make it still good when I see it. Which I hope I do. So let's talk about the other episodes. I love the stuff in the Ways. I thought the Ways were cool as shit. I also liked the Rand is the Dragon Reborn reveal with him, like, missing the arrows. When he was missing the arrows, I was like, Rand, buddy, what are you doing? We got to see the Tam, like, Rand dragging Tam flashback. I still don't think it was as good in this context as it would have been in episode 1, but whatever. They wanted to make the mystery of the Dragon Reborn a thing, and I did enjoy the mystery. I do agree with the criticism that they didn't have Rand do anything. Like, also the like, Saw-Angreal, that's like, this will magnify your power 100-fold, and it's just this, like, random little Saw-Angreal. What are they going to do with Kalendor? This is just a name. It's not going to spoil anything. But, like, that's going to cause... there's so many things in this episode that are going to cause problems later on. And I just don't trust them to deal with it well anymore. And also, honestly, even without that, it just wasn't exciting. It was just like, this is supposed to be the climax of your episode. And it's like... It was just not that exciting. I was talking about episode 7. Episode 6, I know some people were disappointed by. I loved episode 6. I thought the actor who played Swan absolutely killed it. Like, damn, that was good. I thought all the stuff with, like, her and Moraine, where they, like, pretend to be antagonists and then are friends, which is a thing that happens in the books. It's a thing that happens. It's actually a kind of a reoccurring thing Siobhan does. That's her thing. She doesn't want people to know who she's scheming with. I really enjoyed that. The healing mat, whatever. I mean, that's another one of those things where, at that point, I was kind of like, it seems like it's addressing some of the complaints of the earlier books. This is like, for episode 5, there's like the 1 month skip. You know, one of the most complained about things in Eye of the World? There's this big long section of Matt and Rand just traveling. And then they skip it, and then people are like, they skipped out the section of Rand and Matt just traveling. Now, I enjoyed, like, some parts of Rand and Matt just traveling, but it's also like, that's just not a hill I'm going to die on. I don't care if they skip out that part. And it's the same thing for the Matt dagger healing. A huge criticism of the first couple books. It's like, Matt's plot with the dagger is so drawn out, and it's just like his character isn't interesting until after that. So they're just like, let's just make his character interesting now. Does it actually matter for the lore that healing the dagger was easier than it was in the books? I don't know if it does. I can't think of any problems that could have caused. I just don't see how it matters that much if having the dagger for that amount of time is easier than it is to heal in the book. So I was totally fine with that. Loyal obviously looks a little bit silly, but you know what? Loyal grew on me. And the actor is so good. I love it. Like, every scene Loyal was in. Like, he's just so fun. Glory to the Builders. I love his interaction with Moraine. I love Moraine and Rosamund Pike. For episode 1, I actually was not sold on Rosamund Pike as Moraine. I am sold for Rosamund Pike as Moraine. I absolutely love the scenes where you can tell she wants to say something and can't because of the one of the scenes I thought was really funny was near the end of episode 6, where Moraine is like, when I first met you, I didn't trust you, but now we all know each other, and let me speak clearly. You can tell she wanted to say, and now I trust all of you, but she didn't trust at least Matt, and probably more than just Matt, and she couldn't say it. And I thought that was funny. I thought her stuff with, Swan waits on one woman, and it isn't you. I thought everything with Swan and Moraine, like their kind of, I guess, relationship was really fantastic. Probably better than the relationships that are actually in the books. So I'm totally down for that. I think Leandrin was made a more interesting character than she's, but really all the Aes Sedai stuff. This is kind of, I think, one reason why episode 7 and 8 are as good. The stuff that isn't about the Dragon Reborn, like the stuff that's focused on the tower, I thought was very good. But that's not the main part of the series. It's an extremely important part of the series, but the main conflict of the series is the Dragon Reborn. And they haven't shown me they can make that story interesting, or either have it be a faithful adaptation to the books, or an interpretation of the books that is different from the books, but is actually good. So that is something I'm concerned about. Something I'm very concerned about. Overall, I would give the show like a 6.5 out of 10. I would give the episodes like, I would say 4 and 6 are my favorite. I'd give both of them like a 9 out of 10. I love them both. Then probably like 5. I really enjoyed 5. I know 5 was very different from the books, but I actually think the focus on the Warder bond has been really good, and it was generally just an excellent episode that I really enjoyed watching. Then 3 and 2 were both really, good fun episodes that had some good stuff with Shadar Logoth, some good moments with the characters. MVP for this series is actually Zoe Robinson. Zoe Robinson as Nynaeve, I keep saying Robinson instead of Robbins for some reason, and I'd just like to apologize. It's Zoe Robbins. She is the MVP of this season, though. Absolutely killed it. And her burning out and being healed was really stupid. But that's not the actor's fault. I know the actor isn't watching this, but Zoe Robinson, if you're watching this, you are Nynaeve. You absolutely killed it. Damn, easily my favorite performance for the first season. Easily. Everything with Zoe Robinson and Nynaeve that wasn't stupid and the writer's fault was really good. and I was a huge fan. But burning out, and also, why did Nynaeve burn out before Egwene? Nynaeve's easily the most powerful person there. Whatever. I guess, I don't know. Whatever. The burning out and healing was ridiculous. That entire scene with the Aes Sedai standing in the open and like destroying an entire Trolloc army after all the soldiers died was all really dumb. So everything about it was dumb. But the actors did a good job. Anyways, and then 1 and 7, I thought I liked about the same amount, and then 8 is easily my least favorite. I would give 8 like a 4 out of 10. I'm more harsh on it than some people have been, and I'm a lot more lenient on 6. But now I've watched 6 twice now, and I think 6 is straight fire. I don't know. I'm with Brandon on this. I think 6 was excellent, and then 7 was about half excellent and half what are you doing, and then 8 was mostly what are you doing. Whatever. And there's just so many little things as well for 8. This is kind of how I felt about some of the later seasons of Game of Thrones, where it's not like one thing they did that was stupid and ruined the entire episode. Like, I'd look at an episode and it's just like, there's so many little things it did wrong that it just adds up to, it's just scene by scene not good, because almost every scene has problems. Why is Lews Therin the dragon reborn? Who's he the reborn version of? He's just the dragon. That would make Rand the dragon reborn. Whatever. That's not important. It's not important. As other people, this doesn't matter as a show. Like, as a show, it's just a choice. It's not good or bad. But as an adaptation, it's extremely frustrating that the message we're getting is that Lews Therin and the 100 Companions just kind of went to strike at Shia Ghul for no reason, just because of like pride, and then screwed the world over. Okay, their actions screwed the world over, but the Shadow was going to win the last battle. Like, they went for a very good reason. Anyways, that is it for the second half of Season 2, which started promising and ended up being extremely disappointing to me. I will still be watching Season 2, but I'm scared. I am scared for Season 2. I don't know how they are going to recover. I'm going to be completely honest. If they just retcon the shit out of Episode 8, and they just take all the things they do, and it's just all never mind, I will be disappointed, because that it went that path, but I would rather that than them actually just screw with everything. Like, a bunch of, if they just retcon some of the changes they do in season, oh yeah, we're talking spoilers, if they're just like, oh yeah, no, Moraine was just shielded, which people are saying like, oh no, the show was telling you that Moraine was just shielded. No, she was, like, really? That's not what the show told you. That's an interpretation. It's possible, but considering that concept has, like, kind of not been introduced, and Bahal-Zaman says, like, the feel of knowing the true source is there but not being able to touch it is exactly how Stilling is described. And also, Moraine is like, if she was just like to Lan, like, I can't touch the One Power. If that was a temporary issue, it'd be like, yeah, we'll get to it later. So I'm fine if they retcon it and say she was shielded, but I think it's very clear that she was stilled. Just from a narrative sense, why would you introduce stilling and gentling and make it such a big thing, and then have it be like, and then she's this other thing that's different but achieves a similar result in a less permanent fashion? Come on. I it's possible, but it just doesn't seem like what the writers are going for. I hope they just change their mind, and they're just like, maybe we shouldn't still Moraine? Anyway, that's all I got. Second half. 2 episodes I really like. 1 I'm very mixed on. 1 that is thumbs down.